What's up everyone, it's Reinforce here, and I wanted to come here and talk to you a little bit about the current CC changes on the experimental card. It's been a long time coming, DPS players can rejoice, it's finally here. You've been waiting so long for Blizzard to crack down on the amount of CC in the game to make the game a little bit more of a flawless experience. You know, you don't get stunned as much, you don't get stunned as long. I think that's what people hope for the most. And they finally did it. They finally implemented some changes. So I actually went ahead and I experimented a little bit on the experimental card, tried it out, see what I liked, what I didn't like. And to be honest with you guys, like it's not a huge deal breaker. Like, these are pretty minor changes. I think a lot of people expected major nerfs and major changes, etc. Like, honestly, a lot of these, they aren't that big. So I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. But I wanted to go through them all and sort of explain what I think about it. And there's some good ones, there's some bad ones. I have my own opinions, etc. So let's talk about it, of course. So let's start with the good ones. Mei has been nerfed, both her primary fire and her blizzard. The primary fire from 1.5 seconds to 1.3 seconds, the freeze, that is. And then blizzard has been nerfed from 5 seconds to 4.25 seconds. This has been a great change. I tested some Mei, I played around with her, and she's still strong, of course. Now, I didn't play against the best opposition, but, you know, she felt tuned. I'll say that. She felt tuned when I was freezing players with my primary fire. I still felt like it was a good thing, you know. If I freezed a Roadhog, or if I freezed a Winston, a big tank, like, I felt like I got value from that, and it helped my team, and that felt really good. So even though they nerfed that, I think that's a great nerf. Doesn't matter too much for the Mei itself, but I can imagine if you get frozen yourself, it also feels a little better because you don't sit still for that long. The blizzard, also really good. I feel like this is a great change. You can still sort of capitalize on the blizzard itself, and that feels really good. What I noticed the most, actually, was that when you froze people with your primary fire, usually you get in 2 clicks, but now you can only get in 1 click. So that's a huge nerf, actually, to Mei. In and of itself. So even though it only says 0.2 seconds difference, that's a big change, and I think it's a really good change, and I think they should keep it once this goes live, or I hope it goes live anyway. So yeah, that matters for obvious reasons. Like, if you have a target that is like 200 HP, 250 HP, usually before you could just freeze them, double right click them, and they're pretty much goner. Now, with the 1.3 seconds, you get 1 headshot in, but then the second shot, it's, you know, you still gotta aim a little bit, because they have the opportunity to move around a little bit. If it's a Makri, I mean, they can roll away for a little bit. Like, you should get that kill, but it's a bit up in arms, so it's a bit hit and miss. So I think it's a great change, because it's actually a pretty significant nerf to make that second shot, so you can whiff it, or just do a body shot or whatever. So that feels really good. For some other changes, I mean, for Ana and Brigitte, I don't think these matter that much. Like, they're okay, you know? Like, I played some games, and, like, I would get slept by Ana, but, like, how often do you just lie down there for, like, 6 seconds and nothing happens? Most of the time, it's in the middle of a team fight, and you get woken up, and then, you know, it doesn't matter. The full duration doesn't matter. I think it's pretty rare where people get slept and then they just wait out the entire duration. I mean, usually if you hit a long sleep, it's on these flankers like Tracer, Genji, etc. And you have your Ana call out like, "Oh, I slept someone. Come here and help me kill this Tracer." And you count down 3, 2, 1, etc. So that's going to make it a little bit harder to get the team on board to actually kill those heroes before the sleep duration is over. But I think it's a good change. I don't know. Like, it's, you know, it honestly didn't matter that much. So I can sort of get it. I think it's a decent change. Why not? Just leave it in there. If you're a Tracer, maybe you don't like sleeping for 1 extra second. So, for Brigitte, the shield bash duration, I mean, this only really matters when you're like syncing it with other ultimates. So, like, if you're trying to hit an Earth Shatter, or if you're trying to line up like High Noon or something, I don't know. That's usually where this would matter. This is obviously going to make it harder to stun Reinhardt's and set up a Shatter. But that was already pretty hard, considering you have to get around the shield now. So it's not easy peasy already. I don't think it's a big change either. I mean, usually when you stun with Brigitte, when I played her, it's because you try to stun a hero out of a channeling ability. Like Whole Hog. Not that you would ever get close enough to a Whole Hog. Moira's Coalescence. Abilities like these, that's when you really try to get that precise stun in with Brigitte. Otherwise, you just trying to like trap people, and that's pretty much it. So just have them stun for a little bit. So not a huge change overall. It's more so about using Shield Bash as a utility interrupt tool more than it is a stun in and of itself. So I don't really think much of it. If they have 0.75 or 0.65, I don't really care either way. It's going to make it a bit easier for flankers, of course, like if you're a Tracer or if you're a Genji, but I feel like you can get that Brigitte combo in anyway. So at the end of the day, I mean, you're a Brigitte, right? You're going to get that shield bash in, and you're going to get a melee swipe in, and etc. And you're going to poke them away. Sometimes you can't kill all those heroes and they'll get away, but you'll be able to like poke them away and make sure that they aren't harassing your backline as much. So it feels like on that narrative, it does feel like a lot of these changes are just for opening up dive to a large extent, and that leads me to the Makri Flashbang stun, which has been reduced from 0.85 seconds to 0.7 seconds, and this is actually probably one of the greater changes in this patch note. And I don't like it. I actually don't like this change because I think it's massive. For a lot of people, Flashbang is the one ability that shuts down like Tracer, Genji, these flankers, and you sort of have a chance to stop them in their tracks. And for Tracers, I mean, Makri is the one hero you fear, right? Because if you get Flashbanged, you're dead. That's pretty much what happens if you're a Tracer. You always try to stay aware of the Makri because you know that you can't go close to him. With this change, the reaction time of a Makri to line up that shot on a stunned Tracer or on a stunned Genji is much harder in my mind. And I mean, maybe not for like pro players, GM, top 500, etc. But like if you're Diamond, Plat, Gold, like the majority of player base, you want that 15 seconds extra to line up that shot so you can hit a headshot on a Tracer, Genji, etc. And I think that's pretty important. I think it's pretty important that you're able to try and line up those shots to feel like, oh, I hit a flashbang. I can actually hit this headshot before they just recall or reflect or dash out or whatever. Because if you hit that flashbang on a flanker, you should feel good about it, and you should be able to hit that shot and not feel like it's too bad of an ability in the first place. I mean, the biggest problem would be that Makris just stop using Flashbang, which of course they wouldn't be. But you don't want to get down to that level where Flashbang is almost rendered an useless ability. And I think for a lot of players that are lesser skilled and don't have that great of aim, I do like that extra 0.15 seconds to line up that shot. I mean, for the pro level players, the Makris are a majority of that time going to hit that shot regardless. They're going to flick and hit that headshot on a Tracer, and so it doesn't matter as much. But my biggest fear with this change is that Tracers can start running amok and just go ham and get away with murder. I feel like that's the biggest thing. I don't want Tracers to get away with murder in the backline because Makri can't stun them effectively. I really like the fact that Makri is this big counter for Tracer and can hit that flashbang, and the Tracers always have to be aware of it. I mean, that's Tracer 101, right? You stay away from the Makri, and that's a minigame in and of itself. And I think that's really cool that while you're playing Tracer, yeah, you're shooting all these big tanks, yeah, you're trying to look for the picks in the backline, but you also know how vulnerable you are, and that's how you adapt your playstyle. Like, you know that you only have 150 HP, and you have to play really carefully. And I think that's a great sort of like mini-game in the unconscious mind of a Tracer and how they navigate the game and how they stay around this Makri. There's like a big boy circle around the Makri. You know, like, oh, I can't go near this Makri. And I think that's sort of what makes Tracer so interesting, is that you know your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities, you know who is really scary and who you want to stay up, stay away from. If it gets to the point where Makri can get these flashbangs off, and most of the time, maybe in Plat or in Diamond or maybe even in Masters, these Makris can't hit those shots on the stun Tracer, then Tracers are going to start contesting those Makris and going to say like, hey, I'm willing to take this gamble, because if they don't hit it, then I have a great opportunity to blink around for like one or twice and maybe even get a pick, and the odds are in my favor. And I don't want the Tracer to have the odds in her favor when they go up against something like a Makri, and you know that the Makri will have a hard time landing that shot. So I'd rather leave the 0.15 seconds in, because I think it's great for the Makris, who need that extra time to line up that shot and punish tracers. It's about punishing tracers, right? Like, if the tracers get into your backline and they stand in your line of sight and you can hit that flashbang, they deserve to be punished because they messed up according to the rules of the game. And I think that's a great thing. Meanwhile, if you're a tracer, you shouldn't be allowed to get away with murder because you need certain counters in the game. You're a very powerful hero. Your ultimate almost like insta-kills most heroes in the game. And you should be able to like be aware of your surroundings and your weaknesses as a 150 HP hero. So I don't like this change at all. I think it's countering sort of what makes Tracer and Makri so fun to play, and the small mind games within. And I don't like this change at all. I wish they would revert it to 0.85 seconds. Talking about the other changes for Reinhardt, I don't really mind it that much. I mean, you guys know me to be a Reinhardt main, but 3 seconds to 2.5 seconds, I don't mind it that much. I mean, honestly, yeah, 3 seconds, you can get 2 swings in, and you can get a fire strike and a swing in, etc. Like 0.25 seconds. It's not honestly a huge nerf to Reinhardt in any way. Obviously, it's a bit of a tuning thing, and it makes Reinhardt slightly worse. But the main thing why people pick Reinhardt is because he's a mobile, sturdy tank. I mean, if you're a Winston, you can drop your bubble and you can protect your team for a little bit. If you're an Orisa, you have to plant your shield, and your shield is standing there for the next 5 to 10 seconds. But people pick Reinhardt because he is this mobile shield, and he can sort of back and forth with his shield, and that's the primary reason. And then you can also, of course, swing, etc. And I don't think this change is going to affect much. I don't really know why it's in the game in the first place. I mean, I get it. You want to nerf CC. And you want players to spend less time out of control of their abilities. And I get that. But I don't really understand the change. What's the reasoning for it? Reinhardt has been played a ton in the Overwatch League. I think he's seeing a lot of play time. But I don't think his Earth Chatter is like a great way to nerf him in any kind of way. But you know, I can get it. If you want to get on the hype train of like, oh well, you know, nerf CC across the board, like I don't really mind it. I don't think it's a huge deal changer. I think people are still going to play Reinhardt because he's an incredibly fun hero and he has a great kit, and I still think people are going to play Reinhardt. So I don't mind it too much, but I don't really see why it's in there. I think if you get stunned by Reinhardt most of the time, yeah, I mean, you roll your eyes and you know you're on the floor and you're probably going to die. Maybe 2.5 seconds sort of give you that like opportunistic optimism that maybe you'll get away alive, and maybe you'll actually have a chance to survive this and get away, and that's a great feeling in and of itself. I think that serves as a transition to me talking about Doomfist and Sombra, because a lot of people, they saw these patch notes and these changes and they thought to themselves, how are there no changes to Doomfist and Sombra? And I've been trying to play the game. I mean, I played experimental card a little bit and I tried it out. And what struck me is that, yeah, you can nerf the duration of abilities, etc., to make it so that you're stunned less and it feels better. I think one of the changes they really should play around with is nerfing Sombra's hack duration. Because I think Sombra's hack duration just doesn't feel good. And ultimately, you need Overwatch to be a fun game that feels good to play. And currently, I don't think Sombra hack is fun to play against. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Sombra and how balanced she is. Like, she's really busted sometimes in top 500. But the devs are saying that her win rate is really, really low because teammates can't capitalize on Sombra's abilities in lower ranks. And it's a complicated problem. But I think that regardless of maybe win rates in the lower tiers, I still think that those players, even if she's a pretty bad hero and doesn't win a lot of games, she doesn't feel great to play against. And I think that's a big problem. So I've been a huge proponent for reducing Sombra's hack duration for a long time. I feel like it's maybe like a second or two too long, because it's similar to what I said about the Earth Shatter before, right? Like, if you get stunned and maybe you feel that you have a chance to get away alive, that's actually like a good thing, because you feel like you can get away with something and you feel happy about it. Same thing goes with Sombra hack. If you get hacked for, 5-6 seconds, hack is, yeah, it's 5 seconds. If you get hacked for 5 seconds, I mean, you sort of lose faith a little bit in your ability to get away. And when you get away, you feel like, oh, well, they suck, I guess, because they didn't kill me. And And I don't think that's a good feeling to have. Like, I feel like most of the time when you get hacked for 5 seconds, you sort of, like, you know, feel bad about it. And I think there's a nice balance you can have where you get hacked for like 3 seconds, you get hacked for 4 seconds, and as that duration is ticking down, you start looking for ways to get out of this situation, and you actually feel like you can get away from it. And I think that's sort of what you're looking for with these CC abilities. You don't want them to be overwhelming, but I feel like Sombra's current hack is overwhelming, and I think they should scale it back just a second or two, just to sort of give you some hope. There's a lot of time when I play against the Sombra and I get hacked, and I'm like 3 seconds afterwards, oh, I should be out of it. I should be out of the hack right now, and I'm not, and I'm sort of surprised. Like, sometimes I'm surprised where I get hacked by a Sombra and I go, oh, this hack went on longer than I expected it to be, and then it sort of, you know, lags like a second or two extra before I'm finally out of it. I feel like sometimes when I get hacked by Sombra, I expect it to be 3 seconds or 4 seconds, and I'm sort of surprised by how long the current duration is. So I really like to see them tune down a second or two of the Sombra hack. You have to kind of find some way to make her less annoying to play against while be able to, like, boost her win rate. I don't know if she should be able to, like, flank around. I have no idea. Like, I haven't thought about it. But I don't like the duration of Sombra's hack because it doesn't feel good against to play, or it doesn't feel good to play against. And I think that's the primary reason why you should look into CC in the first place. Roadhog, a bit of a weird change. Knockback increased by 20%. I played some Roadhog, and it's weird. I don't know why. I don't know why they implemented this change. Maybe they're trying to make it so, like, when you pull out Whole Hog, you're, like, trying to clear the enemy team away. I mean, we all kind of love Whole Hog because when you pull that trigger, I mean, it's a meat grinder. I mean, you're about to do some serious damage and people get knocked into walls, etc. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, you can put it in the comments down below, but when I get Whole Hogged as an opponent, I don't feel like I'm like it's a bad thing, like I'm getting punished. It's more like, holy shit. I don't know, like, holy shit, I'm getting Whole Hogged. It's not an overpowered ability, so when I do get Whole Hogged, I sort of just accept my fate. because I know that it's not a super strong ability. I know that there's multiple ways to cancel the Whole Hog, and someone probably will cancel the Whole Hog, and if it doesn't get cancelled, I will probably survive because I have a lot of healing in my back. I mean, you probably have like a Moira or an Ana or whatever. And so it doesn't feel horrible to play against Whole Hog, but maybe I'm wrong about this. I mean, drop a comment down below and let me know what you think about Whole Hog. I don't really know. Playing Roadhog and actually pulling off the Whole Hog, I just had a bit of a different expectation. And I think expectations are super important in games. I feel like when I pull that Whole Hog in the experimental card, I feel like I'm pulling it out to push people away rather than to kill them. And that's pretty weird because that's not the expectation I've had for 4 years when playing Roadhog. Like, when I pull out Roadhog, I'm like, okay, the tanks are close to me. There's no stunts in my way. Or I'm peeling away like flankers. And I pull it out because I know that I can deal a lot of damage in a very close area around me. And it feels incredible. Like, when you get that Whole Hog onto a Reinhardt and they're stuck on a wall or something. Or you even do it on like a Zarya. Like, that feels great and that's fun. But now when I pull it out on a Whole Hog in the experimental card, it's like, oh, I'm just clearing the point, I guess. Like, it's 2 CP and I pull it out and I'm like, oh, I'm clearing the point, I guess. I'm pushing them away, making sure they can't get close to my team. And that's not necessarily a bad thing balance-wise, because now it has a different utility, has a different tool set. But that expectation to change your expectation from, I'm going to deal tons of damage and kill some tanks and maybe peel away some flankers, to, I'm going to knock the enemy team back to ruin their positioning. Like, I didn't consider Whole Hog like a positioning tool most of the time. Like, yeah, it pushes people away, and that's cool and all, but it's mostly just like to just destruction around me. And so it's a weird change. I don't know why they did it, but, you know, it's a bit whatever. I wish they would revert it. I hope they don't implement the increased 20%. If they feel like it feels bad to get stuck on a wall and get Whole Hogged, I mean, I mean, that came out wrong, but still, like, I don't mind it that much because Roadhog as an ability is just not that strong in my opinion, and so it doesn't feel garbage like when I get Roadhog ulted. That being said, I haven't played against a ton of Roadhogs because it's just not that meta anymore. But that's how I feel about it anyway. Sigma's accretion changes. These are interesting. I get it. Okay, I get it. I get the knockdown duration. I get it. Like, if you get hit by a random rock coming from the moon and you get stunned for whatever the duration is it 3 seconds? I'm gonna find out right now. Just watch this gameplay while I'm talking. And you get that max duration stun. I mean, yeah, that feels pretty bad. It feels like it's a random projectile that they obviously didn't intend to, and now it's just ruined your day. Yeah, it's 3 seconds. Yeah. I get it. I get it, right? At the same time, if you are the Sigma player, like a lot of with a lot of these changes, you have to consider both perspectives. You have to consider the player who's playing the hero that is crowd controlling and stunning, and you also have to consider the hero that is getting stunned, the player that is getting stunned. You have to consider both parties. And with this change, I mean, it just didn't feel too fun as a Sigma. Like, yeah, it's a decent stun, but 0.8 seconds. I mean, that's like a brig stun, but now you have to aim a projectile that has like a, fall off loop to it. And it just didn't feel great. I sort of liked the game where you were like, oh, again, it comes back to the mini games within the games, right? It's like, oh, I'm gonna lob this huge rock and try to hit it, and if I hit it, it's a huge pog moment. Like, it's very hype to hit that big rock and get like a 3 second stun. Now, that being said, 3 seconds, probably too long. I mean, I would have appreciated to at least see 0.8 seconds to maybe like 1.5 seconds. I feel like that would be a good medium, because then you can sort of play that minigame of like, hey, do I want to gamble and hit my 1.5 second rock to my team fighting in the distance, or like hitting a support that is far away, or do I want to focus that 0.8 second stun towards a tank like that I know I'll hit? And I like that, those sort of mini games where you can decide your option. Like, do I want to go for a 0.8 second stun, or do I want to go for a 1.5 second stun? I do agree that 3 seconds is a bit too long, and as you're reducing CC across the board, I get it. Maybe 3 seconds isn't the best. So that sort of wraps up the changes. So yeah, Doomfist. I haven't talked about Doomfist. Doomfist is a problem, and he's also good. Like, you people can't deny that a lot of the reason we see Doomfist being played is the fact that he's an incredibly fun concept. That's what I think anyway. I think Doomfist as a hero concept is incredibly cool. I mean, this guy is like a fighting game hero in Overwatch. That's badass. He has a huge, huge hand, and he just smashes people to the ground. I think that's badass as hell. He's really cool, and I can see how that caters to a lot of people. He's super unique, and I really like that. At the same time, it needs to be scaled back a little bit. I mean, the CC from Doomfist alone is just too much. It's like, okay, well, you don't fall asleep for 3 seconds when you get punched, but you get interrupted and you get moved around, and then you get C-speak slammed, and you get bumped up, and then you get uppercut, and it's like it is all of these small changes with Doomfist, like in your movement, that makes everything so unpredictable. Like, you're playing Overwatch and you have an idea of what you're going to do in the next fight and how you're going to pull it off, and then Doomfist comes and he throws you off once, and then he throws you off twice, and then he throws you off three times. Thrice. I was gonna say thrice. That's not a thing. But it's not about the duration with Doomfist. It's more about the small changes he does to your movement, and the small interruptions that sort of throw you off. And I think that's the biggest problem, is the amount of stunts and sort of CC abilities he has. It's not the duration per se. And I think that was very noticeable across the board. Like, even talking besides Doomfist, across the board in experimental card, what I noticed was that it was not so much about the durations of the crowd control itself. It was more about the quantity of crowd control abilities in the game. And that's what really threw everything off. I think a lot of players have that, like, an expectation of how they want to play the game. Again, like, you're an Ana, you're trying to heal your team, and then suddenly you get thrown for a loop, and something stuns you, just interrupts you. And even if it just interrupts you for like half a second, you sort of get thrown off a little bit, and you're like, whoa, what was this stun? Do I, like, danger, beware, and like, you have to look around, and you don't look around, you know, literally, like, 360. But it pauses you for a moment, and it makes you think, do I have to be, like, worried about one of these abilities that's coming out, like a stun or whatever? And it makes Overwatch feel less seamless. You want the game to feel seamless. You want to be able to play DPS, you want to play support, and you want to feel like you can execute the game plan you have in mind. And if the game plan was incorrect, you lose, because your game plan was inferior. But if you have a game plan, and you can't execute it at all, because you get stunned for half a second, or you get stunned for a second, and then you get slowed, or I don't know, you get uppercutted, and like, then you can't execute your game plan at all. And I think that's what makes it a frustrating experience at times. Because you want to play the game, you have an idea how to play the game, and you just aren't able to play out the game like the way you want to, because there's just too much shit flying at you all at once. And so it's not so much about the durations that they've actually nerfed here. Like I said, I've gone through all the changes one by one and sort of given my take on it. Some are good, some are bad. But this just sort of opened my eyes to the amount of crowd control abilities in the game, and how much it affects this seamless experience. I think a lot of times when people consider dive, and even when they consider echo in this case, like when they consider those kind of heroes, it's because those gaming experiences, you could sort of execute something your way, and there wasn't a lot of stuff in the game that stopped you from playing out the game you wanted to play it out. Like Tracer, for the most part, you could blink around if you weren't flashbanged by Makri. Genji, you only had so much to worry about. Like, as a Winston player in 2017 and 2016, what I had to worry about the most, really, was a Lucio boop. Like, a Lucio boop was one of the biggest threats to me, because if I get booped as a Winston, I will be out of range, and I won't be on enemy used, and I'll have to hide behind a corner. Nowadays, if I play Winston, like, holy shit, dude. Oh my god, there is a lot of things that will mess you up. And so I don't really think that dive as a meta per se was like flawless or was like perfect or anything. I think those dive compositions, just didn't have a lot of stunts in them. And it made people really enjoy their gaming experience, because they could play dive versus dive and feel like they could execute a game plan. Like Nanoblades, dives with their Winston, they could coordinate with their team, and they weren't thrown off. And so, while all these experimental mode changes are like good or bad, some are, you know, good, and I appreciate that they actually tried this out. Overwatch has a bit of a different problem, and I don't really know how to fix it, but I wanted to give my 2 cents on it, and at least tell you what I experienced playing experimental mode. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Let me know what you think about the video in the comments. I mean, I rarely do these kind of videos anymore, so maybe I'll start doing them more frequently. I mean, they just came out with communication improvements, etc. on the PTR. Maybe I'll try that out and give my thoughts. I hope you appreciated the video. Subscribe, all that good stuff. I mean, YouTube has been out for like, what, 15 years now? You know the drill. Like, I'm a new YouTuber. Help me out. Help a brother out. So, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, etc. And I'll be back with another video, maybe, hopefully soon. Who knows? Who knows with me, honestly? Who knows? I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one. Have a good one, friends.